Hello, Sim here. So this video is intending to answer lots of subscriber questions that I get relating to NetDoomer, lag compensation as a whole, and what I'm going to nickname the combo technique. And those of you who watch my Black Ops 2 Sims Thoughts video use the combo technique. The Black Ops 1 footage that you're watching right now is using the combo technique. But my previous video was pure, for Black Ops 1, was pure NetDoomer. So I'll come back to what this combo technique is in a minute, but a couple of questions that I get is, does throttling make any difference? The answer is obviously yes. And does the Geofilter make any difference? And again, the answer is yes. So I'll come back to the Geofilter in a minute. So the throttling technique does make a difference, and even if you're throttling in a party, it does affect your other mates in the game who are in your party. And that was clearly demonstrated to a mate of mine who's got super stupid download speeds. That's 3 times more than mine, if not even higher. And he was really suffering from it. He was getting a KD of 0.5 or below. A classic sign, if you're a good player, that you're being lag comped. So when I throttled my connection to 50%, suddenly his KD shot above 1. And it's like, wow, that throttling thing does make a difference then. So it's like, yeah, that makes a difference. You wait when you put the Geofilter bit on top. So, a lot of you guys have asked me about Advanced Warfare. Does this Geofilter stuff make any difference? The obvious answer is yes, but I'm going to be able to show you graphically the difference it makes. So let's jump on to some screenshots. This is for the PS4 initially, and I'll move on to the Xbox One, all to do with Advanced Warfare, so I've done some testing over the weekend. So here, the screen shows you peer pings, which is a new feature in the latest firmware update from NetDoomer. That measures the ping of all the gamers that are in your game. And as you can see, the maximum ping is 138 milliseconds with an average of about 36 milliseconds. And there's some lucky player in there with 11 milliseconds on their ping. Really super duper fast. So this is where the Geofilter is off. So you can see straight away, ideally you'd want them all around 35, 36 milliseconds. And you know everybody's going to get a fairly good gaming experience. And if we look at the ping of the host, you can see it's fluctuating between 20 to 25 milliseconds. So this is the Geofilter off. Continuing for another example, you can see I've got a player that's outside of my region, i.e. outside of Europe, or a lot further away from Europe, and 160 millisecond ping. So I've got a player there that's going to be really hard to shoot. But the ping of the host is still reasonably okay. And then another example. We go to where actually we're going to use the Geofilter now, so we've switched it on. You see it's just below 20 milliseconds most of the time, with a little bit of a ping above. And here it's only a few players being shown in this particular case, maybe because they're not responding to the pings. I don't know quite how NetDoomer have implemented it, but the average is about 30 milliseconds. But you can see that those gamers that it is showing in this particular graph are all fairly close. But if we go on to another example. Here you can see that the ping of the host is less than 15 milliseconds and it's quite nice. And here you go, you get to see a lot more of the gamers in the lobby who, during game would average 25 milliseconds or so with a maximum of 40 milliseconds. So you can see that's a pretty good gaming experience on the PlayStation 4. If we now move over to the Xbox One, got the Geofilter turned off again. You can see we've got gamers who are outside Europe gaming against us. They have some high pings, some of them got 130 millisecond pings, This graph fluctuates all the time and it just shows you the snapshot in time that I managed to take. But then the ping of the host is fairly good. But what you're seeing with the Geofilter being off, which is what you're going to get with any router that doesn't have that capability, because NetDoomer is the only router that does have it, that's your experience that you're going to get. So you saw the 20 milliseconds there, and then if we move on to another game experience, we got a 20 milliseconds roughly all the time from the host with suddenly a 100 millisecond spike. I don't know what was going on with that particular host at the time. But here again you can see this is Europe versus North America example with a maximum of a 200 millisecond ping. It was absolutely crazy. But it shows you, this is what happens. Half the lobby is in Europe, the other half is in North America, and that's the result. So yeah, this is where the Geofilter makes the difference. So now here's an example where we've got the Geofilter on. We got an average of, let's say, 30 milliseconds with a maximum of 50. I'm rounding up the numbers here, but you get to see the difference straight away. And you got a relatively stable ping. I took this off the host early-ish in the game. And here's another example of an average of 30-ish milliseconds and a maximum of 40-ish milliseconds. So you can see it's much more, the spread of the pings between the gamers is much more fairer. There's no wild discrepancies between, you know, 40 versus 200 milliseconds type thing. Similarly, another example with the Geofilter on, you can see that the ping of the host is fairly good. And moving on to the third example, again, you can see, you should be able to see straight away that, you know, the ping of your gamers with the Geofilter on is pretty damn good, and the host will fluctuate a little bit, but it's not fluctuating wildly. So that covers that. So does the Geofilter make any difference? Yes, it does. So if you guys remember from my NetDoomer setup and walkthrough video, if you've watched it, I talked about ping and the effects of it and where they are in the world. So I go through this like a world map, well, Europe-wise anyway, showing you the ping using the pingtest.net service. So it allows me to know which countries got good ping and which ones have got bad ping, or even worse, jitter, where the ping just varies wildly. So in my particular setup that I walked through in that video, showed you that I have a modem. In my particular case, it's a BT Infinity OpenReach modem. It's connected to a TP-Link router, and that TP-Link router is then connected to the NetDoomer. My consoles are connected to the NetDoomer. The rest of my home network is connected to my TP-Link, which means anybody who's streaming and stuff, I can ensure that they have a maximum bandwidth. So in my particular example, I've assigned them 6 megs. Which is plenty for streaming from YouTube and you know, movie services and all that type of jazz. And then I just give my NetDoomer the rest. So in the combo technique, and I'll jump to the TP-Link router, you'll see that I've got IPs here for this 110 to 120. I've signed them like a meg upload and a maximum like 6 megs down. And that rule's enabled here. This rule here, which I can tick on right now, will affect my NetDoomer, because that's the address that's associated with my NetDoomer, that's .10, and I can just turn it off. So if I just quickly cover some basics, just a quick recap. I got address reservation using MAC addresses, so my .10 is the MAC address associated with my router. I have the NAT, of course, enabled for both hardware and current. And then in forwarding, we've got UPnP, and I've got that enabled. You can see all this stuff going on. That just goes to addresses and stuff. And then got DMZ. In this particular case, I've put my NetDoomer, that .10, so you enable it and put it in there. And that's the case. Now, bandwidth control, I have it enabled, and I tell it my internet speeds are this. Upload, download. You know, so you can get that from speedtest.net and then times it by 1024, and you'll get your values, and you just type them into here. I walk through this a bit more slowly in my ultimate guide to lag compensation, as it's called. And then, because I know where my MAC addresses are, and I've signed the IPs against them via the address reservation, I can then assign my router a bandwidth and then enable it. So for example, you notice 448 and 896, that was the minimum values. This values were used with Black Ops 2. It was varied by about 128. It made a difference on how big the Geofilter was, and so I could just turn it on, not use the throttling feature in my NetDoomer, and just use it in the TP-Link, because I could precisely specify how much bandwidth I wanted to give the NetDoomer. And then these higher values here, this 1024 and 2048, were the ones that I was using for Black Ops 1. And as I said in my previous video, Black Ops 1 has, uses a much more higher bandwidth. So if I flip over to NetDoomer, we have this bandwidth control. Now what I typically do, because I only have my gaming consoles connected to my NetDoomer, is I use these sliders to throttle when I need to. I will try and run roughly like 95% most of the time, but as soon as you like that, have that 1 to 2 second behind that you can see from kill cams and all the rest of it, I'll start throttling. And generally when I'm in parties, I'll put it down to 70% as soon as it gets noticeable and bad, and then adjust appropriately over time. Which is this is the thing I like about NetDoom, is just being able to drag and slide these things to adjust dynamically very easily, in between deaths, so to speak. And if you want to really throttle hard, because you need to for an old game, and you'll get this dialog come up a few times when I try to do this, then tick on that one, click okie dokie, set it to like say 2%, and then drag this one down to like 2% or whatever, for example, when you need to throttle hard. But if you've only got everything connected to your NetDoomer, then you're throttling your entire network, and it's not great because you only want to throttle your gaming machine or gaming hardware. So what would be nice is that when I say, here's my Xbox One, let's say I wanted to throttle it to 2%, that it throttled the upload and the download speed. But it only throttles the upload speed. It has no effect on the download. And the only way to get this to be 2% is by unticking this Share Excess button. And then of course you have to click the Update Distribution. I'm just going to click Reset for a second. So I know I'm flying through this stuff quite quickly, but I wanted to just cover the Geo Filter and this element first, the throttling. So trying to recap slowly for a second. I have an IP address that's associated with my NetDoomer. I can use the throttling technique that I cover in, at a slower pace in my other videos. The most recent one being the ultimate guide to lag compensation. I walk through the TP-Link router. And so I can throttle its bandwidth very precisely, enable it or disable it, which is cool. I throttle the rest of my home network that's only connected to my TP-Link. My gaming consoles are connected to the NetDoomer, so that anybody who's doing heavy downloading doesn't affect my gaming experience. So I do like the TP-Link in that sense, because you can type in precise numbers and it affects the upload and the download. Of course, there's no sliders or anything like that, so you can't make quick adjustments. You've got to click Modify, go into another screen, type in a number, update, etc. for it to take effect. Where on the NetDoomer, I can just slide these quite nicely, but I do not have precise control over my speeds because it's just pure percentages. And NetDoomer recommends sliding these to being at the same. So if you slid this to 36, you should slide this to 36. Right, so I hope that made sense. Right, I'm going to go to my host filtering page because I had a lot of requests for all my settings and stuff. So at the moment I don't have any Geofilter enabled at all. And for some reason this shows ping peer off. That's probably because I got to enable one of these. So I enable that, but normally ping peer is on. And scrolling down because this is a new feature. The thing about peer ping is that if you only throttle one service, I'd love it to automatically select the service that you throttled, because not throttle, so to speak, Geo Filter. So I had the Geo Filter enabled, typically just on one console at a time, because I'm only gaming on one console. So if I've only got one enabled, I'd like it nicely to go and select service number 1, because there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. So if I selected my PlayStation 3 and have the Geo Filter applied to my PlayStation 3, I would love the peer ping service just to automatically switch this to 2, because it knows that's the only service that's switched on. So, but you have to manually select. That's a little niggle for me, but that's how I did the peer ping graph to show you what the heck was going on, and did Geofilter have an effect? And the answer is a definite yes. So is it perfect all the time? No, because it's down to the gaming infrastructure, how well that's behaving, i.e. is Xbox Live healthy, is PlayStation Network good, how are the Call of Duty matchmaking servers working, etc. They're making tweaks. So there's a few variables, time of day, ISPs, how good are they currently traffic shaping? So there's other variables, but majority of the time it has a positive effect, but it's not perfect all of the time, because you need the rest of the world to be perfect, which it never is going to be. So for me, this is what my Geofilter is set up. And pretty much I've settled on this type of zoom. So I've moved my home away from the UK to here because I want this part of Europe. I try to completely avoid Spain if I can, because it's, if you watch my setup video, I show you what the ping and jitter is like over here, and then it gets down to the bottom of here and it's absolutely terrible. And of course, the further you move away, it gets even worse. So this is what I use for a UK gamer. So use pingtest.net to determine your pings of your servers on the countries or states surrounding you, and then move your Geofilter to an appropriate place. And it would probably take a little bit of time and tweaking. If I could actually select countries and go click, 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 and click, I would do that. I'd be fantastic. Maybe it's a feature they're introduced later on, but it'd be great because I can then include the countries I want. So let's say I don't want Ireland because I know the server in there is very jittery and the ping's not great. Select the UK, select France, Germany, Netherlands, and all this sort of jazz over here, but completely miss Spain. And so have the ultimate benefit of a nice gaming experience. So this is what I've got set up on this page. Nothing really special. I don't have anything in the deny and allow. I have played without in the past, but I've just kicked everything out and cleaned it. Because obviously the cloud that supports the NetDoomer has had updates done to it, so I just wiped it all out. So if I find a tricky server, I'll go and mark it as bad or a bad gaming person. Well, not person, but internet. So here, as I mentioned, I normally try and have this like on 95% when I'm gaming, and as I mentioned earlier, if I can see that I'm 1 to 2 seconds behind, then I'll just start sliding these things down. 50% sometimes can be a nice value, and generally sometimes I go down to about 30%, remembering that I've got in rough numbers, an 80 meg download and a 20 meg upload. I don't mess about with this because really, as you can see, it's my game consoles and 2 different variants of my laptop, being wireless and wired, I guess. So if I flip to host analysis screen, this, as it says, PC games only, so I don't use it. VPN. Now, if you're being DDoSed, so if you guys will probably recall the whole PlayStation Network and Xbox Live going down at Christmas, yay, due to a DDoS attack by the Lizard Squad. So you can use VPN to hide your IP address. I don't have this issue, so I haven't used it yet. I may play about with it at some point in time, but as you can see, you can then say make your Xbox One be in VPN. But I've not played about with this. I'll scroll down the rest of the page so you can just see I've not got anything enabled, nothing's going on, it's not being used. So just going to walk through all pages because I've had a lot of subscribers ask what the heck are all your settings in. So network monitor is literally that. It's a monitor for your internet usage, and yeah, so there's not any real settings, it's just a monitoring tool. So device manager shows you, as I mentioned, I have the TP-Link connected to my modem, and this router, the NetDoomer, is connected to that. So there you go, it shows you the address, that's it. So this is just a status. That viewing other router would just take me over to the TP-Link page on this tab here. But if I go back to device manager, you can edit it. Here's where you enter in your download and upload speeds, and they've changed that so you can have 2 decimal places, and that's cool. So you can say, okay, do a speed test not net. It tells you what your download and upload speeds are, and you put it into here. And you can delete from here devices, and then once you've changed these values here, just click update. So there's nothing too fancy on this page. Internet diagnosis, this is to allow you to do a ping test. It does a bit more than that. It completely shuts your internet off and does some real nice stuff to give you various stats and stuff to say that your internet connection is good, to make sure you got no problems. There is other diagnostic data that it can give you, and you can go onto the NetDoomer forums if you've got serious problems with your ISP being not good, and there's data there and they can advise you. They, being the community, will advise you on the best way forward to go and deal with your ISP to go and get your internet problem sorted. Help tools is literally that. So I'm not going to go through the help tools. So the settings is where there's lots of stuff. So I've got Wi-Fi. I'll give the name to my station, wireless station. That's what I've got it set on. I've still got 6. It's all manual. Type in the password, click apply. It's job done. There's no whitelist / blacklist, so you can't restrict what connects. Port forwarding. I got no port forwarding enabled. It's just all the UPnP. Then we go through UPnP. So that's enabled. This is the stuff that just does all the automatic stuff. LAN. So remember, I don't have this. No, so LAN's internal, WAN's external. So you can see it's set to 88. It's left as ordinary. That's enabled. Default, least time. DNS is just automatic and no messing about. IPv6, I've actually turned that off because I was reading some stuff saying about potentially performance issues. And I think this affects people who've got really super duper high speed internet. I mean, greater than a gig type thing. So yeah, so I have it turned off. MTU I've just left as automatic. Going to the DHCP lease. So here, for example, I've got a list of MAC addresses and they'll all be grayed out by the time this video goes up. And I then assign a static IP address against each of my consoles. And that's what I do, so that the port forwarding or the automatic port forwarding via UPnP works nice and smoothly and beautifully. WAN. Obviously, I hardly use anything on this page because I am connected to another router. If I was connecting this to a modem, it's different. Here you start entering all your ISP type information. So PPPoE is off, but that's what BT Infinity uses. And that's what my TP-Link is set up to go and do. You have a WAN IP, so the ISP provider is giving you a static IP and said, this is it, here's your details, just type it in. There is no authorization. You're just purely connected to a network. There's no other protocol going along. Your default WAN MAC address, so this, which again will be grayed out. This is the MAC address that you would type in on the TCP-Link router to statically assign an IP address against the router. So I haven't mucked about with that. I haven't even touched the WAN VLAN. Again, the IPv6 I got it off, and the MTU is enabled to auto. And this is the WAN, not the LAN. And then going to miscellaneous. Here's all the settings. So deep packet processing I got switched off. I only need this enabled if I am gaming on a PC and I want all those KDs and servers and all that stuff that comes under this host analysis page. It's the only page that will use it. And since I'm a console gamer, I've got it turned off. I don't need it. Feedback to NetDoomer, fine. Allowing NetDoomer to sign on to my thing if I need them to do. Fine. UPnP, again, it's on. Multicast snooping is on. IPv6, I've turned it off. Access the control panel from the outside world, I've actually turned that off and it should never be enabled from my point of view. Enable cookies, so this allows it to remember the settings. A Wi-Fi workaround mode's ticked. Stealth mode, that's a new one. Allows you to somehow hide on the internet. I don't know the details, but I don't have that enabled. And then for the cloud settings, that's why I've got it. I've got it on auto cloud. I don't have it on bleeding edge or anything like that. I just have it on the auto and just update by that. And that's all there is to it. So I'm hoping I've answered everybody's questions because a lot of you were going, what are all your settings, Sim? So I've just gone through and quickly walked through it. Hope the video is not too long. I hope also that the TP-Link throttling technique, where I'm throttling my NetDoomer, so effectively jumping back to the Geofilter page and wait for it to load. There we go. So let's say I'm gaming on my PlayStation 3 because I'm playing some really old games such as Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 1. I've got this enabled. Cool. I've got a Geofilter on like that. And yes, I've got a ping assist value that's fairly low because I've had issues with it for me, and I've had it set for 18 milliseconds predominantly with this Irish server over there. But yeah, I've set it to 18 and it works fine for me. So effectively, you slide it all the way to 0 and turn it off. But that's what my setting is. But getting back to the main point, so I'm gaming on my PlayStation 3. I have the Geofilter here set like this. You can use this little expand button that expands it out automatically for you if you need to find more players, because it just snaps according to the next sort of like lobby / whitelisting matchmaking server. But I try to keep it like that also to avoid the laggy servers. As we get further down this way, it gets a bit laggy. So I avoid that, and then I leave the congestion control completely at 100%, so effectively it's all turned off. There's nothing going on. Then I apply the throttling, which you can experiment for against the net doomer, and this of course throttles all your consoles, or anything connected to your net doomer is going to be throttled to that same speed. So I'll have my laptop that I use to go and tweak the Geofilter, for example, but make sure you're not downloading on it, because you've limited it to say like 2 megs download and a meg upload, and I want that bandwidth reserved to the game really. So all I'm trying to do is just adjust any settings on the actual NetDoomer itself on the Geofilter page. I hope that made sense. I know I've whipped through stuff quickly. I'm sure there's going to be more questions, and I hope I've covered all the questions, to be honest. So as always, I appreciate a thumbs up. Feel free to drop some more questions and queries down below in the comments section. And if you're not already subscribed, go and hit that subscribe button. Until next time, this has been Sim.